Electric Utility Board will reconvene in open session. Item 5 is the public comment period. I'm assuming we don't have anybody signed up for public comment, which will take us to item 6, update report by the Director of Electric Utilities regarding customer service, business center practices, procedures, and policies, building procedures, and LP&L staffing and performance. Mr. McCullough.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'll just hit a few highlights on the report. On page 9, the graph there showing the rate comparison. For the first month in a long time, we're the lowest in the state. We've got one utility that dropped lowest. We're not absolutely sure what caused that dramatic drop in their cost, but anyway, it could be an anomaly or it could be an error. So we'll see how it looks next month. On anyway, we're still very low compared to most everybody in the state. On page 10, you can see where we stand in relation to Excel Energy. We've got quite a spread there between what their costs are and what our costs are. So hopefully our residents understand that they're getting quite a deal compared to what they would be getting compared to Excel if they were on Excel. And let's see. Okay, on page 14, these new graphs. Hope y'all are liking those. I sure do. You can see a lot of information at just a moment's notice there. And we do have a new call center supervisor. You can see at the bottom there, Camille Cotton. She's here today. Okay. So she's got a lot of experience in running call centers, and so I think she's going to do a really good job for us. The graph, the upper left-hand screen there, we've been sort of tracking Project Helping Hand. I know Councilman Hernandez didn't come back, did he? But he's been active in helping us with this as well, and he's made some suggestions on how we can improve that Project Helping Hand by coming up with a single payment screen that's better than what we've got now. And we're working on that. We've got a vendor queued in on that, trying to make that improvement. I think that'll even help further. We've had a steady growth in both the number of people that are making donations and the dollar amount of payments, so that's good. And page 15, we had the two at the bottom there, the Chipotle and Chick-fil-A are both new. Everybody else is on there the previous month, so we've still got a pretty good scenario for in growth and within public, which is still very, very good, very strong. And then on page 18 and 19, there's a pretty good write-up that Matt put together on legislative update. We do have a couple bills we're tracking there. One is the Senate Bill 776, which the mayor went down and testified on her behalf. Our Governor Perry did us a favor and got an exception in that bill that really has to do with the transmission rules in the state and whether or not you have to go before the Public Utility Commission to get a CCN, which is add lead time to the project. So we've got this exception now, and thanks, Mayor, for the work you did down there on that. We're not even sure that it'll get written into law yet, but it's our amendment to that bill is still in there, and Senator Fraser has assured us that amendment will stay there. There's a couple other bills we're tracking that I don't think are going to harm us at this point in time. So that's really all I had tonight. I'm happy to respond to any questions.
Any questions for Mr. McCullough? If not, thank you, Mr. McCullough. Appreciate the report. And we will go then to item 7. Discuss financial and capital statements, financing options, audits, and financial policies of Lubbock Power and Light relating to debt issuance issues, reserve account funding, cost allocation, and revenue and expense projections of Lubbock Power and Light. Mr. Archer.
Good afternoon, everyone. Yeah, that's my name is Drum. So. It is that's picture on our website, though. You know, if you go to our website and kind of go throughout the website, you'll see some interesting pictures like that. So, yeah, that's pretty cool too. Page 20 through 29, the bottom of the page. That's where the documents are on in your backup related to the financials for March. One to start, as we typically do with the average bill, basically paid by a resident customer using 1,000 kilowatt hours per month, and you can see over this non-summer season, October through May, we've been $94.71 for that 1,000 kilowatt hour of usage. At this point in time, we are still fine-tuning what purchase power recovery factor will be for the summer season, but it looks at this point that it'll be very, very similar to the prior summer season, which was about $106 a month for that residential customer. If you compare LP&L to Excel, which we like to make a comparison to the folks in Amarillo, you can see at this point in time they're paying $113.70 where our customers are paying $94. So even with our summer anticipated rates, we are still below where Excel customers are at this point in time. You know, really right now, Excel customers are about $19 a month higher than LP&L customer. And if you look over the last 12 months of history, being an LP&L customer versus an Excel customer in Amarillo, you would have saved about $128 over that 12-month period between those two comparisons.
Andy, I believe I read in the material that their 5% across the board rate increase had already kicked in, or
Yes, and believe, and that's reflected in these numbers here. That's my understanding as well. The next page is really a budget comparison. Through the month of March, you can see that March was about halfway through the year. You can see that our total funding sources are about 39%, our total expenses are about 44%. One of the reasons that the percentage, at least on the revenues, is well below, really on both sides of the equation. When we forecast and we put together the budget about the time last year, natural gas prices were significantly higher than what they are today, and so we don't anticipate ending the year with revenues of $220 million or expenses on purchase power of $159 million. We have pulled those estimates back, and beginning next month, we will be providing you with a forecast for what we see the remainder of the year being. And in that forecast, you'll see that, really right now we're anticipating, because of the pass-through, about $214 million of revenues for general consumer meter, about $14 million less there, and equally on the purchase power side, about a $40 million reduction there. Net has a zero impact on us. We pass those costs through, but when we factor that in, we're about 42% on our revenues and about 44% on our expenses. So we typically see a lower percentage at this point in the year. Our largest revenues, our largest expenses occur during the summer months, so we'll see that track much closer to budget going forward. The next slide is the income statement. One thing that we have done this month is we've split out that net pension obligation that we've been referring to month after month, and finally decided it might be better to split that out so you can really see what's going on the personal services line item. You can see we're actually down about $400,000 on personal services, which makes up personnel cost, compensation, and benefits. Supplies also down, depreciation and amortization down. So most of the categories are down. Purchase power obviously is up over the prior year. We've had several impacts on our XL bill of transmission charges, somewhat unexpected. We talked about those in previous months, but you can see that right now we're about $3.5 million greater than we were at this point in the year last year. The bottom there, change in net position, looks pretty dramatic. $17 million loss compared to $840,000 loss last year. And back at the $11 million with pension obligation, which is not a cash item, that is an accounting adjustment required by GAAP 68 this year. You get down to about a loss of $6 million. As you recall, we're uncollected about $3 million at the point in time, so that gets you about negative $3 million on net position, which a lot of that is related to the unit contingent agreement revenue. This time last year, we'd had about $5.5 million of revenue. This year, we've had about $700,000 of revenue. We anticipate those revenues to kick up in summer months, and hopefully, as the world hopefully it's a little bit warmer, we start generating a little bit more power. But at this point, I do anticipate those revenues will be substantially less than what we saw last year, and even less than what we had forecast in our budget.
so next month you'll have forecast.
Yes, that's our intent to provide you. We basically have created one when we did through the budget process, but we just haven't gotten it fine-tuned enough that I'm ready to present it to you in an open setting at the point. So we'll fine-tune it and get it back in use packets for next month.
Okay.
This slide is our purchase power recovery factor. As you know, over the last number of months, we're collecting from what our bills were with Xcel Energy. We have recouped that under collection. We are now within the acceptable band. So right now, through April, we're about $2.5 million under collected on those expenses. And we really, at this point in time, anticipate we will end this non-summer season which ends in May, uncollect that $2.5 million. Obviously, when that part of the rates as they on one side I showed a moment ago where the increase in the summer, part of that increase relates to collecting this under-collected amount over the summer months. So that is part of the equation. Obviously, the summer costs are higher than they are in the non-summer months, but we feel comfortable with it. We still think the rate stabilization has worked very, very well. I wish we could have been a little bit closer to fully collected, but the charm of this rate stabilization is that we can make that up at different seasons rather than having huge volatility in our consumers' bills every month. So I think everyone appreciates that, and I think that helped smooth waters quite a bit. And then the final slide on the financials is just an overview of our capital program. Really, for the month, we spent around $1 million. Most of that was on distribution, mostly on meters that were large number of meters and put those in stock, and then also underground lines. About $250,000 expended there. Also transformers, we spent about $70,000. So that's kind of the bulk of that. You can see at the top we have about $72 million total appropriated in our capital program. Through end of March, we spent almost $28 million. So we still have $45 million sitting in the bank, basically waiting to be spent as these projects are coming online as we're moving forward on those. So that basically wraps up my short presentation on financials. I'd be happy to answer any questions you have.
Any questions for Mr. Bertram on financials? Good job, Andy. Thank you.
Thank you.
I guess you'll stay up.
Yeah.
We'll go to item 8, presentation and discussion on preliminary low power night fiscal year 2015-16 operating budget and capital program.
Okay, thanks. Pleased to present you with the preliminary fiscal year 2015-16 operating budget and capital program. This budget is draft and preliminary. There are several items that are not final today, and some examples of those are scheduled charges from the city. We're about 2 months ahead of the city on getting our budget ready. They'll be presented to council in July. So they are finalizing those numbers, and we'll have those input into budget when we bring it back to you for your vote in June. We do not anticipate any really significant surprises there. Another item that we haven't done at this point in time is the cost for pension. TMRS put out their amounts very soon, and so we'll also factor that in the budget once we get that information in. Again, we don't expect any surprise there. If anything, we expect that to be level or maybe even a little bit less than the prior year. So we will, some things that we'll be putting in the budget between now and June. For the most part, I feel very comfortable that most everything's in here and shouldn't change too dramatically. Again, we will bring a proposed budget to you at the June meeting, and we'll ask for your vote at that time and recommendation to the City Council. It will then go to the City Council at the first meeting in July, be presented to them, and of course there'll be deliberation on all the budgets for all the departments of the city throughout the summer, with ultimately hopefully an approval on budget by September, the first meeting in September. We have been working on our budget for a number of months, and we've gone through every program and every cost center and every detail of this budget. We have 21 cost centers, over 1,100 line items in our budget that we have come through and looked for every possible way to save. We have focused on 2 major themes. This is similar to what you saw last year. We haven't changed our theme too much on how we plan for our budget. First is looking ahead and planning for future energy needs. And secondly is, be focused on what our customers and what citizens of Lubbock want and what they expect of us and what they expect of a well-run first-rate electric utility. So starting on the first focus, anticipating Lubbock's energy needs. First of all, Lubbock is growing. Investments in our power grid are absolutely necessary to modernize our system to implement 21st century technology. Our goal is to look to the future and anticipate demand and to carefully invest in our system. And we believe that this is something that a well-run utility should be doing. So future projects are underway or are included in our proposed budget in an effort to improve reliability for everyone in Lubbock. Secondly, doing what customers expect. The reliability of our transmission grid and our plants is paramount, especially as we're preparing for the changes that we're expecting in 2019. And there's several capital projects that I wanted to point out. These are ours. A lot of the budget that we're presenting to you. First is Walker Substation, which is 74th in Utica. There we are looking to improve the reliability and the capacity of the southeast portion of our service territory. That will be addition of new transformers at that substation. And there will also be a replacement of about 4 miles of transmission line, which is over 50 years of age, to meet that growing consumer demand. This map here shows the southeast part of town. You can see this is a loop. This is Quaker, Chalkers right there. Lines will go into Thompson right there, which is just inside the loop. That kind of gives you an idea of that. The second project that we have in the program this year, the first one was about a $7.5 million project, by the way. The second project is a $5 million project. It's a new line from Northwest Substation to McKenzie Substation. It's to really provide transmission line to new Northwest Water Reclamation Plant, in addition to improving the reliability in really the entire northwest portion of the city, specifically in that growing medical complex area along Erskine and side area. So that's an important project that's on the books for next year. Again, here is a map of the north part of town. You can see McKenzie Substation along the interstate, really between 19th and the North Loop, and then Northwest Substation you see out on Clovis Highway about Edgar Avenue area. So you can see it's a pretty good stretch of transmission lines to improve that reliability out there. And the third item I wanted to bring to you is Massey Station, which is our most efficient unit and is very important in the future of LP&L. We need to equip that with automated controls to ensure the continued efficiency and dispatching of power into the power grid, and that is about a $3.1 million project for that. So one thing talking about the capital program, Chad's going to go in a little bit more detail on that in a moment, but I wanted to point out that we have closed, or we plan to close about 25 capital projects this year with a value of about $31 million. Last year we closed about 38 capital projects at a price tag of about $26 million. So over the last 2 years we've been able to complete and close 63 capital projects at a value of $60 million. So there's been a long period of time where a lot of projects kind of hung out there and we're getting closed and complete, and we made a real effort to get that done. So that's kind of cleaned out the inventory of projects that are going on and kind of boils down all the projects we have to work on where it's a little bit easier to tackle. Also, part of doing what our customers expect is that we look at cost savings at every point that we can. We have in this budget reduced about $1.5 million worth of cost to offset some of the increase that we saw in other places. Some of the focus reductions you see are about $500,000 in compensation and benefits, and we've also been able to cut back some of our maintenance costs to the tune of about $400,000. So part of our process ongoing now and into the future will be to continue to look for ways to cut costs and find efficiencies in our system. And then finally on this slide, again, we're also trying to help our customers save money and empower them to help them understand and lower their personal utility bill. And I know Matt's been very busy this year. The bottom graphic is a portion of a graphic on our website that talks about how to find ways to save money throughout your home, and a lot of tips in our powerful pointers section of our website. And at the top, you see the LISE logo. Matt had launched a program this year with LISE. It was a pilot program this year, and we anticipate rolling that out more full scale in the future, really working with fifth graders to help educate them on electricity safety and also demonstrating how electricity works and how it's created. So that was very successful. I know Steve's group was heavily involved on that, and it was a lot of fun for the kids and goodwill for the community. All right. I've identified some strategic investments in our power grid on the previous slides, and a lot of that is driving our expenses. Our capital program really drives expenses in our budget. These higher expenses will require that we have we're recommending an adjustment to the base rates. This is something that we illustrated in our discussions on the budget last year. We anticipated, and our goal was to try to have 5.75% increases over the next several years, and we've been able to, again, achieve that. So our base rate adjustment, effective 10/1, the recommendation, again, is a 5.75% increase. For residential rate 1 customer, you can see here their bill is broken into 3 sections. The first is a service availability charge, which is the amount that's really necessary to read meters, to calculate, mail, and bill, send out bills, and to provide for the customer service area. And so that's about 40% increase going from $687 to $727. The energy portion of the bill basically covers the infrastructure to bring the power to your home or your business. And so the non-summer months, you see about a little over 1/10% increase per kilowatt hour. And during the summer months, it's a little less than 0.2% increase per kilowatt hour. The purchase power recovery portion of our customers' bills are not impacted by this change. That's the largest portion of your bill. Usually about 2/3 of the bill is dedicated to purchase power, and so that's not impacted here. Next slide illustrates a dollar impact for a customer on a monthly basis. So you can see the increase related to the base rate increase of 5.75%. It's about $1.76 a month during the non-summer months. That's from from October until May. And then the next slide shows what the impact would be in a summer month at $2.37 per month for that customer using 1,000 kilowatt hours. Before I move on, any questions at this point in the presentation? Yes, ma'am. Well, I'm sorry, I've added a few projects in there. There was the $4.5 million for the capacity upgrade at Chalker. Then there's also 2 different projects. There's 69 kilovolt line rebuilds from Chalker to Thompson, and another one from Chalker to Oliver substations. All of those together come up to the $7.5 million. I should have clarified that, but you're correct. The difference there is I really just pulled out the control piece. That was the largest. There was some other smaller improvements making on that unit, but I was just highlighting the big item. But you're absolutely correct. Anybody else? The next page, if you turn to page 34 in your backup, this is an item that's new to our budget. It's a rate model. We've had it. It's been in the background, but we never included it in the budget document itself. And so really basically what it does is it looks at the next fiscal year, the 2015-16 year, and then we also incorporate 5 years of additional forecast going forward. And again, like I said, we've had this tool in our office, and this is how we build our budget, but really never has shown you this in detail. But one of the things this does, and if you look at the bottom of that page, near the bottom, there's a line item that says projected base rate increase. You see 5.75% for the next fiscal year, 2015-16, and then you see 3 more years of the same amount. What we have done is currently our reserves are above policy levels, and so those are basically acting as rate stabilizers. They are allowing us to do these same relatively small 5.75% increases over the next several years. We'll be chewing down that reserve, and if you look above that 5.75% you'll see a section that says appropriable net assets. And so in the first column, you'll see that the net assets, or our reserves, are at $63.3 million. The policy goal would be $55.5 million. So right now, we're projecting at the end of 15-16, we'll be over our policy levels of about $7.7 million. But you can see over the next several years that quickly goes down to actually a little bit below policy level by 2018-19. We have a significant amount of debt service that will be coming on and costs associated with the transmission system. And by the time, so it all basically catches up. So these incremental 575 increases over this year, next year, and 3 subsequent years allows us to fund the operations without extreme volatility. If you didn't do this, if you said, well, we don't really need a rate increase this year because you have too much in reserves, so you forego that increase this year, that would force an over 20% increase in 2018-19. It's just the dynamics of how it is. And so what we're trying to do is to minimize that volatility, avoid those big shocks to our customers. I think it's a lot easier for somebody to take on $1.70 or $2 roughly a month now rather than a 20% increase in a year going into the future. So that's why we built this model. That's why we have this model. We look into the future. We know what's going on. The drivers of this is our capital program. It's not operational expense. It's large capital projects. And so that's the intent of this. And again, up here, I noted that the driver of the capital program, just for transmission assets alone, over this 6-year plan horizon, is about $114 million. The bulk of that is our transmission loop. It's in the program right now. It's close to $90 million. So that's the bulk of that.
Sorry, could you clarify how you have smart meters overlaid into the budget?
Smart meters are also in the capital program. What we've done in last year's budget, the smart meter project was anticipated to come online in 2015-16. We have shifted that out another year, so we're anticipating right now that we take it on in beginning in 16-17. So that's one change. Another change that we made was we did not feel that the value of that capital project was sufficient. What was last year's budget, without $20 million, it is now in about $30 million for that project. Jay Cook, who works with us in our Customer Information Services Department, she's just relocated here from Burbank, California, and they had just recently gone through a smart meter, and they're about the exact same size of system that LP&L is. The price tag on their smart meters was about $50 million. Now, she did say they had bought a lot of bells and whistles that we would need, and so we utilized Amy's resources and her expertise to help size this project. So it's a little bit larger. It's about $10 million larger than it was in last year's program. We shifted out a year for a number of reasons. First of all, we have some very large projects, 2019 issues, and we really feel like we need to focus on those issues and get those understood and in place until we begin another project. And so that's one of the reasons that shifted. Another reason that it shouldn't shift out is we have to get our backroom functions ready if that's going to occur. We have to get our billing system in a place where it's ready to take on sort of thing. So part of this budget, this operating budget, incorporates some activities to bring up our billing system. So if we go that direction, if we get that approval to go that direction in the future, we will be ready. We need a lot of the improvements on our information system anyway, but we have to have them if we're going to go with smart meters. So another thing that is factored into this long-range plan is a change in our transmission asset. As we will have the ability, and we have the ability now, to file our transmission assets and wholesale transmission cost of service matrix, or a T cost. And what that does is we will basically can recoup revenues from that, from our RTOs, the regional transmission organizations that handle this. Right now, we are paying for transmission in SPP, but we're not receiving revenue in the transmission that we hold in SP. So if we are working currently to put our books into FERC accounting, which would be necessary to make a filing for T-cost revenues. And so that is also factored in at the very last year of this rate model, where we would actually receive revenues that equal that service on that $114 million of transmission assets, for example, plus additional return above and beyond that. So you'll notice in the final year, I don't know that this will come to pass. You can see at the very bottom of the remodel in 2021, there's actually a reduction of 24% on the rate. I think there's way too much time between now and then to hold to that number. But with the way it's imputed into the model right now, you can do that without any other things going on. So that's part of the part of this rate modeling is that
Andy,
obviously things will change going forward.
If the media could make note of the fact that Andy just announced a 24% rate reduction, that should be the headline.
Well, that's certainly our goal. Our goal is not to have increases every year. I hope that's illustrated here that we do hope and want to attain a point in time where there are increases every year, and there can be. But at this point in time, with the magnitude of transmission assets that are coming online, we haven't been able to find a way to avoid it. So, but we also, when the time comes that we can have a reduction, we're certainly ready to do that. All right, moving on. This is just a high-level overview of budget, very high-level overview. And on page 37, you'll see more detail in your book that ties back to this. But really, the change from the 2014-15 budget to next year's budget, and this is a reduction about, overall, it's an increase of about 0.5% on funding sources and 0.5% on our expenses. I want to highlight The general consumer's meter, you can see that's down about $6.5 million. Purchase power expenses on the expense side of the equation, these are both related, is down about $9.5 million. If you look at the current fiscal year, 14-15, the difference there is about $70 million, which really basically covers our operating expenses and our fund level expenses, which mostly include debt and transfers. Next year, that difference is about $73.1 million, and really the big difference there is the rate increase in total generates about $3.5 million, but the difference there is about $3.1 million. Yes. Sorry, the majority of the decrease is related to natural gas prices are down substantially from where they were this time last year. Absolutely correct. It's the price of the natural gas, which has a very high correlation to our purchase power costs. Purchase power costs are down, thus the metered revenues are also anticipated to be down. Now, that's a budget-to-budget comparison. This year, in actuality, we are seeing much lower revenues and much lower expenses. So really, comparing what we're actually seeing this year compared to next year is a slight increase from purchase power, as we see natural gas prices very modestly increasing next year. And Chad's going to go into a lot more detail on the purchase power component in a moment. The next item I want to highlight is on our power sales. As you know, we have a couple of units, our Brandon and our Massachusetts units. The contracts with Xcel Energy had fallen off this year, and so we are now marketing the power in the SP integrated marketplace. And so that has made for a change in our financial statements, at least from a budgetary standpoint. You should see some big changes in these two lines. On the revenue side, a big increase on power sales, and on the fuel side, a big increase on natural gas. And historically, under the Xcel agreements, they provide all the power, so we were not buying natural gas. We are now buying natural gas to produce that electricity to sell into the market. Again, you'll see really a net change last year. If you take the revenues less the expenses from last year, it was really a net revenue of about $6.1 million. This year, you take that difference, 14 less 10, it's about a $3.6 million net impact to us. So really the change from year to year is really a reduction in revenues of about $2.4 million from what we saw last year than what we're seeing this year. So that's another portion of the impact. Another reason we had to look really hard to find expense savings in our budget to compensate for this reduction in revenue that we're seeing from our power plants. And the last thing I wanted to highlight on this section is our department level expenses. You can see they're up about 0.5% from last year, from the current year to next year. Sorry, I keep getting confused on what year I'm in. And if you further break that down, you'll see that the majority of our line items, higher level line items, are down for next year. I'm going to go into a little bit of detail on each one of these, but you can see overall we're up about $199,000 out of $41 million, so which I feel very good about. On compensation, what I'm going to do on these charts is I basically, at the top row, starts with what our current year budget, the 14-15 budget, and I kind of walk you through to get up to the 15-16 budget, so you can understand everything that went into this. So last year, or this current year, our budget is $16.9 million. There have been several changes in the organization this year, payroll changes. We've hired in positions that are making less than previous positions, or we've been able to negotiate lower pay than what we may have budgeted. So that dropped about $87,000 out of the budget. We have also allocated salaries to capital projects to the tune of about $723,000. The reason for that is that we have especially two cost centers, our overhead and our underground cost centers, that their employees really, for the most part, work on the capital projects, and we capitalize those expenses of our employees. And we, after further review and research, we found that last year we were allocating about half to the operating budget and about half to the capital project. After reviewing, really how they're spending their time, they're spending about 70% of their time, and that's just in two cost centers working on capital-related projects. So this is not an overall decrease in the budget, but it is a decrease on the operating side of the budget. Move those salaries to the most appropriate place and to charge that cost to that capital project, which then we will capitalize the expense. The next line, we've eliminated about $210,000 of overtime expense for next year. We've also eliminated about $100,000 of part-time expense. We've also gone through all our positions. There was a number of positions that had not been filled in many years. They had been vacant for 4 or 5 years. And we did not find a need for those, so we eliminated those. The cost of those 5 positions was about $318,000 in the budget. We have added 5 positions that are needed and we feel are necessary to improve operations, to improve service to our customers. And so that's an add of $233,000. So really, change in those two was a net decrease. And then we've also incorporated 3% in the budget. I've been working closely with Cheryl Brock at the C. And to determine what they are going to include in their budget. And at least this time, I know they're not complete with their budget at this point, but their anticipation was that they would try to include a 3% increase in our budget, and so we have followed suit and trying to mirror what the city is doing, and so that is also incorporated. So that's an increase of $439,000 in our budget for 3%. And you know, I keep hearing a theme from our board that they prefer merit over cost of living, and obviously that can be a discussion we have over the next month or your next board meeting if you want to make a recommendation on how that goes to the city council for their review. Benefits are down about $159,000, and really all of the decline is related to declines on that first chart, and I just broke it a little bit differently for you, really to show you about $125,000 savings on pension costs, $60,000 on income tax costs. Dental and health benefits are down. Now, dental benefits, you notice, are up. Over the last several years, none of the departments of the city have paid for the dental benefit premiums. That has been funded at the self-insurance fund. They had some excess fund at one point in time, and they were covering that cost. They're now not doing that, and so every cost center and department of the city organization will be having that addition to their budgets. So our impact was about $140,000 a year for those premiums. Supplies are down. This slide illustrates the natural gas costs that we added into the budget this year. About $1.3 million of purchases of natural gas at Brandon and about $8.9 million at Maciel as part of our need to market that power in the integrated marketplace. If you take out those two line items, though, overall our supplies are down about $229,000, and that really came in the form of tools throughout the organization, lower expenditures there. We did have reductions in chemicals, mostly at our cook generating unit, as a couple of the units there are out of commission at the moment and under review or under repair. Maintenance is down about $934,000. We were able to reduce maintenance costs at Cook and Brandon about $400,000, and some main reason for that, again, Cook, there's 2 units that are down. We don't anticipate those being online for very much of the time during the 15-16 year, so we can also lower maintenance costs at Brandon because that unit has just been refurbished and should have a much lower level of maintenance costs than it did prior to the refurbishment. We've also reduced in overhead and underground almost $500,000. Again, part of what we're seeing in an aging utility system is that we are reaching the end of the ability to repair a lot of our items. A lot of things are at this point having to be replaced, and so we're seeing some downward pressure on a need for maintenance costs, and so we felt comfortable taking out about $500,000 there, and obviously the new replacement items will be covered under the capital program. And there's just some number of different miscellaneous items that were also incorporated into the reduction on maintenance category. Really, one category where we see a pretty significant increase is on a professional services category. And you can see overall we're up about $1.4 million in total in this category. And I'll briefly go through each of these. We are anticipating some sizable legal expenses as we continue to work towards the solution for 2019. So we've put in about $500,000 of legal expense in legal cost center to cover for that. A moment ago, I had mentioned how our improvements necessary are on our customer suite, which is our billing system. A lot of you may be familiar with the Banner is named. One of the issues that we have right now, over the years, it's been kind of a patchwork of vendors that have been hired. We probably have, 8, 9, 10 different vendors that all we have to coordinate to work for the billing system to work. And so we're looking to either improve what we have, or we will look to a single vendor that can handle all of these and hopefully overall reduce our costs. So we will more than likely be going out for a request for proposal or a request for qualifications or something like that to get some options on how we can improve our billing system. And also this is related to the possibility of AMI or smart meters going forward. If we go that direction, then this will help us get into a position in place where we can be ready to bring that in our billing system. Power marketing related costs, there are costs to market that power in the marketplace, and there's also costs to acquire natural gas. And so that is included here, which was in the budget last year, about $300,000 for those 2 agreements that we have. We also added a pole contact agreement. It's $125,000. This is an agreement that we would expect to take about 4 years. So I would expect about 4 installments of this, total about $500,000. But what this pole contact agreement would be is for a firm to take a look at all of the attachments that utilities have to LP&L poles. We know that there are many attachments that have occurred over many years that we are aware of. Obviously, these utilities pay LP&L to have the line attached to our poles. So we feel that this will more than pay for itself and will allow us to accurately bill for those pole attachments that are in the field and currently exist right now. Transmission cost recovery for $150,000. This has to do with putting our transmission assets into the T-cost recovery what we have to do is we have to basically appraise our system, all our distribution assets and our transmission assets. They have to be broken out and split. Right now, transmission and distribution has commingled on our book. We do not have a differentiation of those units, but in order to make a filing to get these revenues back from transmission cost of service, we have to have these detailed on our financials. We'll be working with our auditors, get those broken out, and get those ready for a filing that we can take and file that and begin getting revenues returned for those assets. Credit card fees, this is one area of reduction. Thankfully, in this area, we've had a significant reduction in our credit card fees going forward, and so that is a benefit there. And then a few other miscellaneous categories that went up to just up about $1.4 million total in that area. My last slide before I hand it over to Chad to go over a few details is really the fund level. These are expenses that are not specific to any one cost center, but you can see there's about a $525,000 increase in our debt service. That has to do with the almost $11 million of debt we issued in this current fiscal year to fund a portion of our capital program. So that will be coming online 15-16. There is a slight reduction in indirect cost allocation to the city, down about $23,000. We did not change any of the methodologies. We worked with the city last year to develop the methodologies that are used to bill us for the services of the city. For example, human resources, accounting, accounts payable specifically, different functions, human resources, if I did say that, different functions in the city that we utilize and or the city's being reimbursed through this transfer. The next two line items, the franchise fee, we do transfer out of the 5% that we have on our bills for our customers. 60% of that goes to general fund, GF's general fund, and 40% goes to Gateway Fund. And so you can see that those are down somewhat from the prior year. Really, if you take the franchise fees and the payment in lieu of property tax, those together are down almost $400,000 from the current fiscal year. And most of that is due, again, to the reduction in natural gas costs, which is pushing down our metered revenues, and so that compile down into the franchise fee and property tax line item. So a little bit of relief there. Transfer of the electric capital is up slightly, about $474,000 over the current year to continue funding. We have input a plan that we fund 65% of the capital program with debt, 35% with cash, and that's basically we're continuing that. And Chad again will go in a little bit more detail there. Been an increase on transfer to WTMA. They've gone up on fees last year. This is next year will be, or this current year. Next year will be full 12 months at the new rate, so that's why the increase there. And then the reimbursement from the city for the utility system, an increase to us about $280,000. Again, a couple of years ago, actually, Chad had worked closely with the city to negotiate a mechanism on how we calculate those. And so this is our third year that this has worked very well. Everyone's in agreement on how it works. And so this year it just happened to be that it went up about $281,000, and still that seems to be working well. But that pays for the water, sewer, solid waste, and stormwater. What they pay as their share of our costs in our billing system and for our customer service representatives. Yes, sir.
And you mentioned the capitalized labor element. Which line item in the fund level expenses would that be captured in? It's in the direct capital. Maybe that's just on my sheet.
This is just specific to the operating funds,
okay.
And so that portion we would see on the capital program.
Okay. My next question is we're referring to a decrease in the franchise fee and the both pieces of the franchise is being driven by a drop in the purchase power cost.
Mm-hmm.
So basically, are we anticipating that our purchase power recovery factor for next summer will be lower than this summer, or am I missing something here?
Again, this is a budget-to-budget comparison, and so obviously the budget was inflated last year because natural gas was much higher last year than it is today. So if you're looking at an actual-to-actual comparison, so our customers are going to see this summer, next summer, I don't think there will be a lot of change.
Okay.
It will be very similar to what they're going to see this summer.
It's what we're baking into the budget figures in anticipation of those lower costs than what we anticipated last year.
Right.
Okay.
You know, and it just came to mind. I know Mr. Bell had it to me before the meeting, and there's a couple of other areas. Did you want me to go ahead and address some of those areas for everybody right now, Mr. Bell, or do you want?
Whenever it gets in.
Yeah, I can do that right now since we're kind of on tail end. Most of the things you had brought up as questions I addressed in my presentation, but I'll go over a few of those changes that I didn't specifically address. And what Mr. Bell had done was he had gone through each different cost center and looked at some increases where the percentage increase kind of looked big, and he was like, what's driving that? And so I'll go through some of those. One of our cost centers is regulatory compliance, which really look at all the environmental issues at the utility. And one of the things we're having to do is there are some federal standards on electric reliability that we must ensure are in place, and so there has been an addition of a consultant to help us with that compliance, which is about a $56,000 increase. We've also, in this budget, there are some regulatory costs at our production plants, and so we have consolidated all of those into this regulatory compliance cost center because that makes more sense. All those regulatory costs are in one place, and we moved about $50,000 of costs out of the production cost center and into this one. So in that line item, it's a professional services line item in the regulatory compliance category. Went up about $100,000. That's made of those two items. In the conservation and education cost center, which is the one that Matt's most related to, last year there were $125,000 in that budget for Camp Lee's. It was a deal with Texas Tech that never came about, and so that has been pulled out of this budget. So that's a reduction of $125,000 in that cost center. In the distribution operations cost center, there is a pretty good increase on compensation there. There's about a $350,000 increase. The only reason for that is there have been several positions that have been moved. Again, we had some different positions where people had promoted throughout the organization. Their salaries stayed where they originally were hired, so we've moved them to where they actually are housed today. And that one cost center happened to have a number of folks moving there. You'll see the reductions in some of the other cost centers that are within the distribution umbrella. That all that was a shifting of money. It wasn't adding any positions, wasn't adding any salaries or anything like that there. So that's an example there. One thing in our field services area, which is mostly where our meter readers are housed, our meter reading equipment, the handheld units that our meter readers take into the field, where the punch and whatever meter reading is, those are over 15 years old. They are software, and so they're very aged for software, and so we are needing to replace those. It's about $53,000 to replace all of those, and I think that's a good buy for that department.
That's not other charges?
It is in other charges, yes, sir. Did I miss anything, Mr. Bell?
Well, just a couple things. One, you clarified it in the write-up, the summary, page 31, expense overview, the second bullet. We label it 3% cost of living, and you clarified that in your slides. You called it a merit. No, for the board members who weren't here last year, and Charlie, correct me if I'm wrong, I think consensus last year of the increase we're talking about never was approved at the council level. Is I think consensus over that time is we'd rather see a merit increase amount of money budgeted, so we pay for performance instead of across the board. No matter if you perform well or not well, you get an increase. So I still feel the same way. I agree with the slide versus the write-up that whatever we submit in the area of salaries, I'd like to see a merit increase where we pay for performance, not for showing up for work.
And I think, Gary, I think the issue right now is what we budget. So right now what we're doing is placeholder 3%.
Right, but
And
it's not the labeling.
As we go for final approval, which will be in the following months,
Right.
I think we'll have more direction for what the C is specifically going to do, with the intent of hopefully working in concert with them. So
I agree.
Right now it's just numbers.
Just to clarify, I don't agree to the term cost of living. I'd rather see merit, whatever. If the $0, mute point. If there's any dollars, I'd rather see it in merit pool where we decide, should be rewarded for their performance.
Yeah, and I think maybe take the label off for right now, and then we go to final approval, specifically approve which one we're going to go with as far as merit or cost of living.
Yeah, that's the point I was going to make.
Any other questions?
I think you kind of answered, just if you'd speak a little more to it. The general is a whole bunch of categories. Let me find it. Hey, bear with me a second here. A whole bunch of departments, like on page 39, administrative, regulatory, legal, conservation, production, huge increases percentage-wise in the professional services and training. We kind of covered it. Would it dig just a little deeper on that? I mean, we're talking, very large increases in some of these categories.
Sure. And on the administrative costs, the very first one, page 39, you see a $170,000 increase or 130% increase. That has to do with that the transition study to get us to the FERC accounting, the appraisal basically. That's about $150,000 we're anticipating. We haven't gotten a final cost on that yet, so obviously if it comes in less, hopefully it won't come in more. But we anticipate the cost on that being substantial because that's a very big inventorying and appraisal into that. So that's the big driver in that category. And in regulatory compliance, again, that's moving some of those regulatory fees in, and also the consultant to get us up to speed on the federal and regional standards on electric reliability. In legal, $500,000 increases related to the 2019 legal fees. Again, the reduction in the next one, conservation education, was police pulling out. And then in production operations, the $314,000 increase was the power marketing and procurement of natural gas, the cost for that firm to provide the service for us, that contract that would prove, current in this fiscal year, that it would continue to next year. Sir. And that had to do with the money that we had budgeted to take us from those 10 different vendors and bring it all into one, and getting our billing system ready for advanced metering, and those are improvements to. We have a number of vendors that there are some needed improvements, and also those improvements that are necessary to consolidate. For example, when we implemented the new statement last year, we had to coordinate between 4 or 5 different vendors and had to pay 4 or 5 different folks to do their little piece to get the statement fixed, where we can have a nice new statement. And so that's the issue. And that's just one example. Any change we have to make in our billing system, the stormwater is a good example. When we implemented the new stormwater rates, we couldn't just go to one vendor. We had to go to multiple vendors to get that addressed and get it taken care of. And so our goal ultimately is to consolidate that and hopefully save costs. Over the long run, yeah, we'll have a cost this year to get the changes made in our system. I think over the long haul that's going to actually come back to us in a form of cost savings as we move forward. Because there's vendors out there that not only can consolidate all these functions, we can add our mobile app as we want to do. They can handle all the credit card transaction processing. Right now we have another vendor handling credit card transactions. And so it's hopefully a way to streamline operations and save money in the future, but it does come at a little bit of a price tag up front. So that's what that is.
Andy, my last question was, board of page 40, the two Brandon and Nessendale, the splice, the huge percentage of almost 1,500% and almost 2,500%.
Yeah.
Those two areas, would you?
And that goes back to the fact that last year or this year we were not buying, under those old agreements, we weren't having to buy our own natural gas. And so now that we are, it's a big number. And so like 8.9 million at Massengale and about 1.3 million at Brandon. That's added in. But remember, we had a big increase on the revenue side. That slide showed that netted out and showed we were actually a little bit down, but not dramatically. Yes, sir. All right, if there's no other questions right now, I'm going to turn it over to Chad to go a little bit into the purchase power, to go a little bit into capital, and then we'll be able to do a tariff presentation as well. So,
Thank you, Andy.
Good afternoon, everyone. I feel like Andy has touched on purchase power quite a bit throughout the presentation, but good place to start is just to show you how prices have moved over the last year or so. So you can see February of 14, we were looking at $6 natural gas, which was about the time we were beginning the budget process for the 14-15 budget, which goes to illustrate why we have some inflated figures in terms of our purchase power. So you can see that blue line has decreased steadily up to April 15, and so just kind of keep that blue line in mind as we go through the purchase power projections. So Andy talked a lot about 14-15. You see 159 million is what our actual adopted budget looked like, but we have provided a fiscal year 14-15 revised budget as it relates to purchase power and how we think things will shake out for the remainder of this fiscal year. And as Mr. Taylor pointed out earlier, next month we will have a forecast that's fairly detailed starting next month with the financials. But Andy had talked about a decrease of about 14 million in purchase power and on the revenue side, and so you kind of see where those numbers should come from. But so if we look at our 14-15 revised budget relative to the 15-16 budget for purchase power, you can see overall it's about a $4 million increase. Still a little bit of a decrease in fuel, but on the transmission and energy components, you can see increases there. And essentially what that is, a small portion is factored in load growth, but the biggest part of it is we have a rate escalator that kicks in every July with Excel, and so we know that those are going to kick in July, and they'll be in effect for the next fiscal year. So that's really what's driving most of the increase. So that's really all I had on purchase power. Andy touched on it quite a bit and all the impact and the tentacles that it has throughout the budget with how it affects the metered revenues and how it affects franchise fees and the pilot. So if you guys don't have any more questions on purchase power, I'll move on to the capital program. So in a nutshell, Our capital program for this year is about $34 million. You can see the first line existing project, about 3.57. So we've added about 3.6 million to projects that are existing that needed funding in the fiscal year. Massengale Station, Ms. Gibson has already asked the question of Andy of how do we arrive at that 5.56 million, but the biggest piece of that is the controls upgrade for Massengale. Again, Andy talked a lot about transmission distribution. You can see that in the 115 kV line construction, we've got 5 million. You've got chalk capacity upgrade of 4.5. You can see the 69 kV line rebuilds of almost 4 million. Again, we have our normal annual capital project that we see each year. We see the underground overhead. You've got your distribution transformers, you've got your vehicle replacements, and then you have your street light. And then there's 4 other projects that are included in your backup that total up to about 860,000. So you can see we have about 11 million funded in cash and about 23 funded debt. This is just a different way of slicing the pie, just looking at it by type. So you can see transmission and distribution. The first 3 lines are just an enormous piece of the puzzle. You add up all of that, you get about $26.5 million on transmission distribution out of the 33.9%. So I think over 75% of what we're working on this next fiscal year. According to our rate study that we did with JSTO 2 years ago, they recommended that we keep our cash and bond funding at a 35 and 65% ratio, respectively. And so we've worked pretty hard to keep that intact. And so you can see that we funded a third with cash and 66% with bonds. This last part, funding for prior year projects, these 2 projects, the mobile substation and the substation land acquisition, were actually approved in last year's budget process, but they both require long lead times and quite a bit of research to get everything in motion with RFPs and all the processes and procedures that go in place with getting these accomplished. So we decided not to fund them in 14-15, so we're actually bringing them on in 15-16 fund them, because you'll notice they're in the bond column, so we didn't feel like it was prudent to issue $4.5 million of debt that we knew we couldn't spend in 14-15. So we'll actually be funding those in 15-16. So with that, that's all I have on the capital program and purchase power.
That's item 8. Any other questions for Andy or for Chad? Chad, I'm guessing, so labor we were talking about a while ago that will be capitalized is in the capital budget. You have an idea about how much that's going to be?
Distribution, transformers, the overhead and underground lines, really the overhead and underground lines. I think we moved 225,000 out of maintenance in the O&M budget, and it was a 1-for-1 move.
Okay.
So we moved that into the overhead line.
Okay.
So you'll see an increase in your detail in your backup.
All right.
For that.
Very good. Any other questions?
I just wanted to say that we have a month until the next board meeting, so if any of the board members or any of the council members, if they want to go in more detail, we can go all the way down to explaining every little detail within each line item. So we can drill all the way down. We're giving you high-level information, even though it's a lot. We can drill it all the way down. Councilman Gibson knows that well, because it's many hours with her going through detailed line-by-line items. So we're happy to do that. So in the meantime, if y'all just let us know, we'll be happy to sit down and explain, because I know it's a very big budget. There's very complicated. There's lots of items and a lot of things that cause question, concern for you. So we'll have to clarify and hopefully answer to the best of our ability. So
Very good. If there's not any other questions, then we'll go to item 9, presentation discussion on the preliminary fiscal year 2015-2016 electric rate tariff schedule, and I believe that starts on page 118
That's right.
of the
118 to
material.
200. If you want to read all of it. Yes, sir. That's right. So if you guys are ready, I'll go ahead and jump in. Andy has already touched on the base rates and how those will be impacted. So I'm not going to focus on that in the tariff presentation. I'm going to focus on some of the items that we're proposing outside of the base rate. So you can find the refund of customer deposits, the first one we want to touch on, pages 122 and 123 in board book. This is something that we are trying to do to engage our customers and do to have a positive impact with them. And right now we have about $7.1 million sitting on our financial statements of deposits that is restricted cash that we can't use. And so essentially what the chain does, assuming that a residential customer has been current for 12 months and a commercial customer has been current for 24 months, rather than asking the customer to request the refund, this will give us the ability to automatically credit the customer account if they don't have any disconnect notices, return checks, disconnection of services, meter tampering, bad debt for 48 months, or bankruptcy for 84 months. So just things that are kind of common sense in terms of collections. So what this does is allows us to go ahead and just give it back without them asking if they meet all the qualification. Yes.
Just point out we have a red line that starts, that section is on page 164. If you prefer to that red line as opposed to the
Thank you.
I believe that was a discussion. I think it may have came out of our Audit Investment Committee couple of months ago,
May have.
or there was a discussion there, I know, about utility deposits, and so the idea, we should go ahead and make an automatic refund, so to speak, or automatic credit, so to speak, rather than ask them to have to request it.
Yes, sir.
And I think at the time we were thinking that could be as much as $6 million, basically could be credited against public utility.
Assuming everyone qualified, yes. Right.
It's pretty common in the industry to automatically refund.
Sorry.
It's becoming more common. We switched to that during the pandemic. It's something that the auditors encourage us to do because we become a big pile of their customer money.
Well, it seems fair.
Yeah.
You know, I never thought about it when I moved here over 30 years ago. I probably got a huge amount with interest. How much interest?
Not much. And I got a nod from Jenny that in Burbank that this is common as well. I don't think Mr. Rose will let that opportunity slide by. I think we'll be just fine in it, Cat.
And maybe give people the option of donating to the fund.
Fair enough.
Sure.
Sure.
Seriously, I'm not joking there. I joke a lot, but I was serious about that. People want to donate that.
Sure. So, next, and I apologize, Mr. I'll point out the red line. I should have had a red line page in my book, but on pages 130 through 131, the clean version of the net metering is in your board book. The first thing that we're doing is just cleaning up a little bit of language. Where before we said all customers desiring to be served, we are changing that to all customers served on this rate, signing the agreement for interconnection and parallel operation with LP&L. So that's just to clean up the language. The second thing that we added was we added tiers to keep rates similar to rate 1 and 3 for high energy users. So if you use less than 1,000 kilowatt hours because you have solar on your roof, you're incentivized to basically keep your energy below 1,000 kilowatt hours. But if you are not utilizing that in your kind of gaming system, you pay the same rate as people on rates 1 and 3. So the final piece that we did was we removed budget billing, and the simple reason that there can be a lot of volatility with metering customers, and it's hard to put a bandwidth around how much they use on average as far as setting budget billing usage number. So we actually took that out. This is only for net metering. So net metering means, right. So everyone else is not affected by budget billing, just this one rate.
Of course, the budget bill, or that issue has helped a lot with the rate stabilization thing.
That's right.
We still like it's appropriate for budget billing in the mix.
Yes. So the next piece is demand cap. I can read all to you, but I have some slides I think that will demonstrate better. Essentially what we've done is change the formula and how we calculate this by reducing the divisor in the formula from 8 hours to 67 hours. That will mean something in a second. But essentially this rate design incentivizes inefficient use of our distribution system, and we have designed the formula so that the demand cap will be phased out over a 4 to 5 year period. And on the demand component of the bill, and you'll notice I have it bolded and highlighted and underlined. So on the demand component of the bill, no customer will see more than 20% adjustment as it relates to the demand component of your bill. So I think this example will illustrate what we're trying to do here. I have created a hypothetical customer that uses, big customer, 175,000 kilowatt hours and has a demand of 3,480 in a given month. But right now, the way that our demand cap works, we are dividing our kWh by 8 hours to arrive at a kW demand of 2,190 hours. So they use 3,480 kW on our system, but only paid for about 2,200. So what we're proposing is we change the divisor in the formula from 80 hours to 67 hours, which changes your quotient from 2,190 kW to 2,615, and we will continue to reduce the divisor until every demand customer that's impacted by this is on a level playing field and they're paying for what they use. So variance, just to show you the math works, the variance in this scenario, we reduce the divisor by 13 hours. This customer will be paying for an extra 425 kW per month, which is still a bargain relative to the 3,480 that they're using, but they see on the demand component of their bill an adjustment of about 19.5%. So the next question is, how many customers are affected by this rate class, by this change? So in all of our demand metered classes, which would be schools, large commercial, large primary commercial, and large municipal, we identified 753 customers, and essentially we asked Jimmy's group to identify customers that have a different billed kW from their actual kW to identify this subset of customers. The hold on, I've got some statistics. I think the average impact related to this change is 3.88%, one standard deviation of 3.7%, with max being at 16, and obviously the large majority would be in rate class 16. So, power factor, I'm probably going to have to get some help on explaining the technical side of this because I don't necessarily tend to understand it. Essentially, we are eliminating this wording altogether. We had it as effective October 1st, 2015, that we would impose this language, but after further review, management's determined that the best way to approach this is to assist our customers on an individual basis to work to improve those power factor issues. So, essentially, we're getting rid of it. Next thing is optional time of use rider, page 150 in your board book. Essentially, what we're looking at doing is adding a time of use rate that demand customers can utilize in lieu of their current rate. So again, our demand customers are rate 15, which is the schools, rate 16, which is large commercial, 16P, our primary commercial, and 17 is our large municipal. So essentially, this rate incentivizes customers to shift their load out of our peak usage window. So I think we've determined from 1 p.m. to 11 p.m. and this would be only during the summer months, which is the last bullet point there. We typically set our peak historically in the summertime. And so what this does, by asking customers to get on this rate, they will shift their demand outside of that window, which will reduce our peak. And I think this illustrates better than me reading it to you. So the red line, this is our actual peak day 2014. If we shaved off 50 megawatts on that day, you can see the blue line of what that would look like, and it's bracketed with the two black bars of that window. So what's the impact of that? Our peak that day was 585,000 kW. And then I just pulled 50,000 out of the air because it's a nice round figure. Right now we pay a little over $7 a kW. That would save us about $350,000 a month in the summer if we just shaved the peak by 50,000 kW. So it helps us directly in the summer, but also helps us indirectly in the winter because we set a minimum demand. It's based off a ratchet in the contract at 65%. And so during the winter months when we don't have a ton of demand, we pay that minimum charge regardless. So if we can lower our peak day, then we lower that ratchet as well. So this could have an indirect impact the other 8 months out of the year. Last few things are just cleanup items. Meter ownership on page 124, section 8. Currently, the tariff doesn't explicitly say that we own the meters. This change makes it clear that the meter is the property of LP&L. Meter aggregation on the next page, section 13, was eliminated in the 10/1/2014 change to the tariff. This change essentially clarifies that on mutual agreement with the customer, we can totalize their meters. And the last one is really just clean up some language, pages 134 through 139, 142 through 143. Again, this is the demand customers only. Somehow we missed adding the words kilowatt and to the PPRF section. PPRF section currently says that your PPRF will be based on your kilowatt hours. Obviously, there's a demand component to it, so we're just cleaning that up and clarifying that with the kilowatt and language. So that's all I have for the tariff presentation. I'd be glad to take any questions.
Would you say the most dramatic may not be the right word, the most important change in there is the change in the demand factor, the
Yes.
phase?
Yes.
Okay.
And the dollar, I failed to mention the dollars. The dollars, if we have calculated around 200,000 in additional revenue to us. So in the big scheme of things, it's not going to move the needle for us. I know that I'm not minimizing that that's a big deal to the customers as it is, but that's why we've limited it to the 20% related to that piece. And well, I just said that just in case. So I did put together a distribution of the customers that would be impacted, and I think 2 standard deviations, which is 95% of them, would be under 12%. So, yes, to your question.
You said the max was 16%, and
Yes.
basically within the standard deviation 3.7%.
Right.
Sure.
That-
Sure.
There's going to be some measure blowback from this.
The reason we established it at 20% was because we boarded the rate study a couple years ago and the rate study. There's a principle mentioned there, and it's one that I'm familiar with. That was entire class of customers should not see more than 20% increase over year. So we applied even further to say that any individual customer, not just entire customer, any individual customer will not see more than 20% increase. We think that's a reasonable way to phase it out. It's more rate side needs to go, but we need to be phased out for a long period of time.
It's the right decision, it's just a tone.
And I applaud the staff for trying to come up with a judicious, reasonable, practical way to work that in over time.
Are we
Communicating with any of those customers that might be affected, or is there any way we can do that?
I haven't.
Until, I know, but that, just give them a heads up.
I think that's
You know, going forward, if this is approved and it goes through, there would have to be some form of a recognition of this change. I think if you look at details, and obviously we can't share customer information publicly, but if you look at the impacts on a per customer level basis, it's not as large as you might envision that it might be. It's a relatively minor change, and the vast majority of the customers and the ones who have larger impact have a really poor load factor. And so, you know, there might be some things that we can work on to help improve our operations.
But again, so demand cap will impact all of the demand meter classes, but all of those classes also have the opportunity to move to the time of use, which not all of them will, but they do have the opportunity to shift their demand into different window.
Any other questions, comments? Thank you, Jeff. All right, that's a lot of good information. That would take us then to item 10, discuss and consider a resolution appointing an elected utility board member to the City of Lubbock's Audit and Investment Committee. I believe that is page 201 of the handout. And Mr. Kastner, correct me if I'm wrong on this. I believe the reason behind doing this is that's a 2-year appointment.
Yes, sir, it's a 2-year appointment, the existing term up June 1st of this year.
June 1st.
Yes, sir.
And they y'all graciously appointed me to fill Ms. Bluck's position on that committee back in the fall, so I've been doing that. This has to be reappointed on that 2-year cycle.
Yes, sir.
Mr. Dunn. Motion made and seconded. Double second. Any discussion? Okay. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Any opposed?
How often does the committee meet?
Quarterly is when we're scheduled to meet. Ms. Right. Okay. That would take us to the consent agenda, items 11 through 13.
Mr. Chairman, has anyone pulled any of these items to our knowledge?
Not to my knowledge, Mr. Kastner.
I make a motion we approve the consent agenda then. When you need to pull it then.
Go ahead.
Mr. When the bids were determined to be non-compliant with specifications, so they were rejected.
Something like that.
Right.
I didn't know.
Mr. Bell moved it.
I move to approve the consent agenda.
Second.
Okay, and I believe Kastner got me straight on that. We don't really debate that.
That is correct.
Okay, so unless there's unless somebody did want to pull something, we'll just have an up or down vote. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Okay. I believe that's going to get us out about 3:30
I get you to
to Ruby, Texas.